I am receiving my own life, and it's making me fall into a puddle of tears almost every other hour. It's a privilege to be so awake, and I'm gonna make myself some Indian food in the microwave. Ow! I love you. Don't worry, I have been MIA mostly just because I'm letting all of it wash over me. Whew, it's really, really wonderful.
Welcome to Noticing, the podcast about nothing and everything at the same time. This week we're talking with children's book illustrator, storyteller, and self-proclaimed deep feeler, Sam Wedelich. In this conversation, Sam takes us on a journey through her creative life, full of unfinished drawings, toys, and stupid mental health walks. Sam welcomes us into a world of curiosity and reminds us that it's easy to keep hope when you're around children. So I hope you enjoy.
Okay, today we have Sam Wedelich on. She and I worked together in New York City. So Sam was technically my boss. She and I worked for Free People in New York City, and we both built displays. And my memory of Sam was me being on like a 20-foot ladder in the middle of Rockefeller Center's Free People store, and her being like, to the right, looks great. But I always felt like I always got very excited when Sam and I were the ones that would have to go to New Jersey in a van. And we'd rent a van and go out to these little stores and help them put their displays up. And I always got excited because I felt like the van was this very protective place where all of the professionalism that I saw Sam have to like box herself in and be like Christina's boss, so she couldn't let things over the line of boss. It would fall away, and we would have these really amazing and deeper conversations. And then there would have to be like the professionalism Sam when we were in among her bosses. But I got this glimpse of this incredibly deep and soulful person who, when we were in the van, I would find out lots of amazing things, like how she loves to sing soul music like I do. I think your birthday is coming up too, right? We both have birthdays right around now. And just this fiery, deep, soulful, thoughtful, reverent human being that I loved getting to know. So then I moved out of the city, started working on building my own installations. She moved out of the city, and we've kept in touch. Sam is a children's book illustrator, an amazing illustrator who always was drawing at work all the time anyway. But now is like really thriving in this, and I'm sure we'll talk about that today. And I moved up to Maine. She's still outside of New York City now, but it's been really special to watch you, Sam, deepen yourself into the things that I saw inklings of, and like whispers of things maybe you would want to spend more time doing. And I'm doing the same thing up here. And every once in a while, we'll have a quick catch up, and it always feels really great. And like an expanded version of the van. That's my little intro to Sam. I'm really happy you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. That's really funny. I remember those two. I think I know what you're talking about. I don't know that I thought about that, holding that line, but I did care about making sure that everything felt like, I don't know, proper and correct, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you were speaking, I was like, I know that feeling of like you get into these corporate spaces and it's not even a spoken thing. It's so interesting when we get in spaces how, I don't know. And I'm not assuming that's your experience, but that's what it rang true for me.
That's fair. I think there's a certain amount of code switching that happens maybe organically in that. Also, to put it into more context, it was a team, right? Like I managed a team of artists. So I think I was also just being really careful to never appear to have favorites. Like a mom is trying to be like, I love all of you equally.
Yeah. I think you did a good job of that. And then I loved getting the deeper Sam when you felt like there was space for that.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm a pretty open person. It's also about my sense of safety too. Like in places like this or in places where I feel safe or invited or comfortable, I'm pretty open book, but I'm the opposite of that if I don't feel that way. Like I'm a total wallflower. I'm much more comfortable just watching and taking things in. So it's kind of an on-off switch a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that feeling for sure of like, yeah, feeling out where do I feel safe to be fully myself and when do I not? I think it's an intelligent strategy.
Sure. Yeah, I was always trying to find the places because I've always felt very safe to be myself. And then all of a sudden I was put into a more corporate setting and I was like, what? People can't just, what? They can't just be fully themselves? I don't know what to do. And it really confounded me. So I found safety in those van moments.
Makes me
Yeah.
happy. Yeah.
So Sam, this is the first time I'm meeting you, but we intentionally don't do research on this podcast because we want to just show up and see what's alive. But I could not help looking at your artwork. And then I was drawn in. So I am so curious. I mean, I have so many questions, but first of all, I'm curious how that transition happened of like moving from like, how does one start writing children's books and getting in that world?
So there are so many versions of how people do that. Like most things, like a lot of it is timing and a little bit of luck. But I think all of that always is dependent upon having done the work, right? Like having readied yourself and shown up for yourself and to whatever is inside of you. So I was always drawing and writing things since I was a small person. And I was one of those kids, which it's funny because I'm now dealing with this with my own child. I was a margin doodler, right? Like to much to the frustration of my teachers. I would get thumped on the back of the head in church constantly for drawing. But it's how I listen and it's how I process information. I'm always kind of moving my hand and translating things that way. I just, without going too far into it, I never thought of it as a job for a lot of reasons. But I made a hard turn in college to go to art school. And then when I got married young. I'm from Texas originally, so it didn't seem young to us at the time, but then to the rest of the world, getting married at 23 is young. And Russ got into a grad school program in Miami, and we had only ever lived in Houston area. And so I needed a job, and I didn't. For the first time, I couldn't just use my network to get random art gigs, which is what I had been doing with my art degree at that point. And so I got a job doing window display for anthropology. And that sort of started my corporate journey. And it was fine, like it paid the bills. It got us through grad school, and then he got a job in New Jersey, so we moved to the Northeast, and I just kept doing it. Took a year off and tried to make a go of it with my own illustration and was doing pretty well. And then, kind of got offered the golden handcuffs to come back to one of the sister brands to Free People. And I mean, the health insurance and the stability at that time in life was hard to say no to, so I didn't. But I kept drawing on the side. I couldn't do as many craft fairs or shows like I had been doing. But I don't know. I think it was always a secret dream. And then life happened, right? And so we started a family, and I had my first kid and kept doing the job, but started to feel the strain, right? Like climbing ladders and being at stores at 5 a.m. or pulling overnighters started to feel harder. And then we wanted to have another one. And when I was pregnant with my second, I thought, I think I'm done with this job. Like, I can't be traveling this much. I'm missing everything. And it was sort of just a really personal moment. So my husband and I started talking about how we could reconfigure our life to live just on his salary, and I could take time with the kids while they were young and maybe see if I could spin up my own art career again. So I did. But that whole time I was drawing, I started posting cartoons about motherhood and stuff when my youngest was born, and a woman I had made a connection with randomly online through, it was like an online platform that wanted to disrupt publishing. it didn't work. But we had gotten connected through that, and we'd stayed in touch. And in the course of that time, she had switched from being an editor to a literary agent. And she was like, hey, do you want to like tell stories? Like, you're doing this anyway. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like thinking it will be a long time. Like I have a baby right now, but like by the time anything happens, you know, they'll be in school. And then that's when I want to be doing this. So sure, let's get this going. And then it turned out that an editor really loved my stuff and asked me to work on stories. And my son was 2, I think, at the time. So I said, yeah. And it was a little chaotic. And then everything happened during the pandemic and everything got more chaotic. And I don't know, it's just kept going. So in some ways, very accidentally, and in other ways, was always sort of ready in case it could happen.
Yeah.
I see a lot of the things that you draw. When you draw, it feels to me like you are illustrating your own inner world in the context of everyone's universal experience.
My agent and I talk a lot about that. And it's something that writers, I think, know pretty intuitively, that there's universality in specifics, right? Like that the more true a story I tell about my authentic experience, the more close to the core truth I share, the more universal it becomes. And it's actually something I share when I go and talk to students at schools. Like I love doing author visits, and I talk to them about why stories matter, right? Because it's this weird thing that we do. Like we tell stories and have for a long time. And obviously stories can be dangerous. Like there can be propaganda, you know, but you sort of ask, why do humans do this? And I think it's because it connects us. Like when you tell a very specific story about something that happened to you, or even a made up story, there's always enough of you in it, enough of your lived experience that gets into it, baked in there, that it creates empathy connections, right, between you and other people. So the thing I always tell students when I'm talking to them at schools is, like, I start with something very like broad, where I'm like, I'm from Texas. Like, okay, you're probably not from Texas. I mostly talk to people in New Jersey and New York and Pennsylvania, right, or Connecticut. Like, you're not from Texas. Maybe you know someone from Texas, but we're not connected yet. And then I say, you know, when I was growing up in Texas, my mom is from Germany. And so English was not her first language. German was. So she spoke English poorly with a pretty thick accent. And when I was growing up, kids made fun of her, and they made fun of me, and they made up stupid names that they called me. And it made me feel separate and kind of othered. And then I tell the kids, like, if you know that feeling, like, now we're connected, right? And you can always feel a little shift in the room when it happens. And I know they know. And it's like, this is the power of storytelling. It doesn't have to be a hard thing like that. It can be a funny thing. It can be a silly thing. It can be a joyful thing. But it's because of that specific, vulnerable feeling getting shared that it creates this connection. And I think you can do it with visual art too.
You do both, right? Don't you? You draw and write. Is that, you know, I've got kids. We read a lot of children's books. I think I actually have one of the not color corrected copies of the first book you did, which was very special that you sent that to me. And we read it, and it's my daughter Lucy's. She always says, this is my favorite book. And we read it, and I'm very expressive like you are when you read it, and it's a really nice time. But a lot of the books that we have, it's written by one person, illustrated by another.
Yeah, so I've done both, and it's funny, like, not having maybe prepared or gone through whatever a more traditional journey into children's publishing is. I didn't know all the things that people know about those roles going into it, so I kind of had to learn as I go. But yeah, people take it very seriously, right? Like, it's a really experimental, new, and fascinating form of literature, this children's literature category. And so normally, yeah, there's somebody, you write a story and you sell it to a house if you're doing traditional publishing. And then the team there's an editor and an art director. They will match an illustrator to the project, right? And so that's something that from the outside, a lot of people don't understand, or a lot of people who write a story think they need to find an illustrator. And it's sort of like a matchmaking thing that publishing houses really enjoy doing. and they are not interested in you taking that away from them. No, I mean, sometimes projects come, with people attached, but I think a lot of times it's fun for people to try to put things together. They can be separate, right? Like someone can be just a words person and they're playing with language and they're playing with rhythm. A lot of children's books texts are poetry. A lot of them are rhyming. And then some of them are more traditional story format. And then the visual art can do a lot of things, right? You're telling a whole separate story, right? And a lot of times the people reading the book, your audience is usually an adult who is sort of understanding everything and a child who can only understand the pictures until they hear the words. And so as the visual side of the storytelling, you're really sort of trying to hold space for both of the people interacting and giving enough information or intentionally withholding information or intentionally counteracting the narrative, all with the desire to give the child as much agency or care as possible. I write funny books, so I'm always trying to let the kid be in the driver's seat if possible. So like the story that you mentioned, my very first book, I have what's called an unreliable narrator, right? And kids love an unreliable narrator because it puts them in control, right? They know the character of the story is about to be set up for some sort of mistake or failure. And it's so funny to them because that's usually their experience, right? Everyone else in the world knows or seems to know everything about how the world works. And they don't. They keep messing up all the time or living in that uncertainty. And so it's very fun for a child to be like, ha 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 ha, like I'm in on the secret and you're going to mess up. You think you're so brave, but you're not. You're not at all. I can tell already. And that's such an exciting thing to give a child.
We started these conversations talking about like, the world is on fire. What can we do? And I think about everyone finding what they're good at and what brings them joy and how to then seed a more loving and equitable world. And when the little bit that I was looking on your website, I like found your PDFs of like, one was like about mindfulness. And I could imagine a parent finding that and needing those tools just as much as their kid. And so it is bringing this message to both the parent and the child. And I just get so excited about reorienting our society around what do kids need and like giving them these messages so early on and having brilliant storytellers like you focusing on kids. And it just, that gives me a lot of hope and like what we can seed into a better future. It really excites me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to keep hope when you spend time with children a lot. And like, you don't have to have children. You were a child, And I think part of what probably feels nice about looking at children's books is you're honoring that part of you that is still there. We are all the ages that we ever were. And I am still very much a child, which is why I do this work. And yeah, and I want to be really clear, like I care about both people reading the book, but I want to center children in the stories I'm telling and make sure they feel seen and heard. And to the extent that the adults are reminded of what it is to be childlike and to tap into that, that's what I'm inviting them into. And I'm using humor to do it a lot because I think comedy is a really interesting device to soften folks.
Have you always been oriented towards comedy?
I think so. That's a good question. Yeah, I think so. I think I always liked funny stuff. I mean, I can be fairly earnest too. I'm a pretty deep feeler, but I think I always had some sort of inclination or leaning toward jokes.
I mean, even the way that you talk about how when you go do these author visits and the way that you find a common ground with your captive audience, these children, is to tell them something that was difficult. That, to me, speaks to your deep feelingness because you're relating to them on something very real and tender. So like you set the groundwork with something real and painful, maybe, and then you lift it with comedy. So you do both. You're not just I've always seen you in this way, someone who does both, because you are very deep feeling and you can be very serious, but there's such a lightness to you as well. So even like in the PDF, if people go to your website and see your PDFs, I think there's even like an anxiety spiral, or like you're literally drawing. Didn't you draw someone holding their anxiety in their
Oh
hands?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny because it's hard.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's true. I have melancholy tendencies for sure. And maybe humor is a part of how I deal with it and try to balance it. I don't know exactly. You would think after all the years of therapy I've done, I would have some clarity on that, but I don't. Um, but yeah, kids are amazing because they're ready to talk real. Like they know.
Yes.
You don't have, like, it's the adults that scare me usually. There's so much more rigidity there, so much more certainty. And I find that very frustrating and challenging. And I think it's part of why the world right now feels very weary to me, because there is so much certainty all around and people very, very sure, of all the things. And I just live in a world of curiosity. I'm not saying I'm not sure about like things, but I like to talk about the real stuff, and I feel very lucky to get to do the work that I do. And to think about the thing. Like right now, I'm trying to do a bigger thing than I've ever done, which is scary but good. And hopefully I can pull it off.
Do you want to talk about it?
I've always wanted to make a graphic novel. And so picture books are short, right? Like standard picture book lengths are 32, 40, 48 pages. It's a quirk of how books are bound, that it's always 8-page increments. And the way that I write, like, Christina, if I laugh at this, like I talk too much and I oversay everything. And so it happens in my writing too, that I make very complicated stories and then spend forever peeling them back to get them to like the right essence to be a picture book. And so in some senses, I'm like, this will be great. Like this will be easier because I already am too complicated. But shifting to a graphic novel, it's a lot more story to carry. Characters are older. You need more plot. You need more devices, more things going on. But I'm excited to try it. I'm looking at like I have a Post-it note. I'm at the Post-it note stage of it, which is, if any author people listen, they'll know this. But, a lot of people work with the Post-it notes where we're trying to map out things that we know need to happen in the story, but it's easier on Post-it notes because they have to move around a lot. Like I have like pieces of it and I don't exactly know how it all fits together. It feels very gestational. Like I'm trying to lift this thing out.
I love it. Yeah. Is a graphic novel's like Dogman, right? Like, is it like comic-y?
Great question. So Dogman is a young graphic novel.
Yeah.
I'm trying to write something that would be more middle grade. So I'm trying to think. I have so many friends that make graphic novels. I should have had a stack ready to share. I can send them after. I have a reference library I'm kind of glancing at, but the problem with the graphic novel section of my reference library is that my children take them all. So most of them are actually no longer in my library. They're in other parts of the house. It's a huge genre right now. It's blown up. It's really big. And it's actually maybe something that outside of my immediate community isn't really known. There's a lot of big feelings about how much graphic novels have taken a bite out of children's literature. And I think most of us making books are just happy for kids to find books that they want to read, like period. But
Can I clarify the big feelings? Is it like children are gearing more towards graphic novels and that disrupts them reading like chapter books? Is that what I'm intuiting? Okay. I see.
And that's somehow a problem.
Yeah.
And I sort of like leaving space for all the options. So that there's early data when people are trying to study it. Graphic novels, they carry on the thing that picture books do, which is combining visual language with text. They can be really helpful for kids with dyslexia or kids with other, different styles of learning, because of the visual language that's present, can be such an aid. But we're also starting to see or be curious about whether or not it helps everyone in their reading comprehension or language acquisition to have exposure to these things. And at the same time, like, it's fine to encourage kids to read other styles of books. I just think calling any books good or bad starts to get a little weird. It is a very different type of storytelling. In some ways, it's similar to the things I've already been doing, and in other ways, it's more like storyboarding a movie in a book form.
Yeah.
So it's more complex, and the story I'm telling is someone in like a junior high school age. So a little more coming of age.
Yeah. I actually think that what you said right before that is important about labeling any type of book good or bad. It lit me up. This is like a core philosophy in my life of the way that we put things in boxes of good and bad. First of all, it's limiting because everyone does learn differently. I'm dyslexic. I really had challenges growing up. And I think about how we desperately need new stories right now and new ways to tell stories. And I wanted to call it out because I do think the more we talk about these things I think it's easy to get sucked into a debate of it's this or that. And the more we can pause and tease out and speak clearly about, well, there's another option. What if I step out of this is good or this is bad? What if we have both? What if we make space for both? So that's what I really heard in what you were saying. And I find it fascinating that these conversations are happening even in writing for young adults, that a discussion of, not this or that, but yes and giving people options. And I don't know, it makes my heart so happy to know that there's thoughtful, intelligent, amazing storytellers like you that are bringing more options. And yeah, it's exciting to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. That's right. It's me personally, like, I am interested in always like complexifying. It's not even a word, but like, I don't like when things are, made to seem very black and white. And I think that speaks a little bit to the rigidity or certainty that I was mentioning earlier. I want to stay curious a little longer, right? Like, and push a little more into that space in between the things. We have a huge problem in our country right now with book banning, right? And people wanting to decide what books are good and bad for children. And I think stories are so important. And I think that a lot of people believe and probably do have very strong feelings that they are trying to serve children in the things that they're pushing for.
Yeah.
And I think it would be better if people could start from that place and remember that as they talk about these things, even as I acknowledge that sometimes the viewpoints are never going to line up. They're just too diametrically opposed. They're coming from defining the universe literally upside down from one another. And I don't know how to reconcile that, but I think the aspect of maintaining a sense of community and a shared desire for the welfare, support, and love of children would be a better place to operate from than demonizing people who hold different viewpoints. But it's hard. That's a hard thing. It's a hard thing. Even as I'm saying it, I'm sort of like, ooh, is that right? I don't. Me personally, my personal feeling is we need all the stories. We need all the stories for the reason, that there is so much universal truth in people's specific stories. And I think it's very tiresome for me, and I think it's even more tiresome for children to keep being handed the same story that was popular in the 1950s. It doesn't feel the same. The pacing of the stories is different. I mean, my daughter is 13 and for fun, tried to read Little Women, and it was hard for her. And we talked about it. She was like, it's taking forever for anything to happen. And I was like, of course, because at the time this story was written, nothing happened. You didn't have television. You didn't have, all these forms of entertainment that have sped up our attention span and our desire for pace, right? Like, you wanted a story to last you hours. You wanted opera because that was how you were going to go and socialize. You wanted it to take 4 hours with an intermission. That was great. And now our brains are like, whatever, 30 seconds, swipe, 30 seconds, swipe. It's a very different world we live in. And so I'm not saying get rid of those things. I think it's important to have our history and to understand what literature was doing for the people at that time. And yet I don't think anyone, when Little Women came out, were desperately trying to read, Beowulf, something equally old for them, going like, that's real literature, this stuff. I just think that we lose sight sometimes of what's important. And the stories that people are writing now, the new stories, are so great because the people that are writing them are people who are closer to the world that the kids are living in. And they're speaking to the things that they see. The artists are always trying to shine the light on the things. That's kind of just what you do. So yeah, I think it's good to find the new stories that speak to people and make people feel less alone in the world, right? Like, we need those stories that center all these other ways of being so that people don't feel alone, because the truth is there's almost always someone who's going through or has gone through the things that you're struggling with. And if the only context you find a sense of community is through a story, maybe that's the thing that gets you to the next moment, and that's everything. So
beautiful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's so nice. I am in a little class, like a little prototype class about story, specifically cosmology of our times, and like what cosmology means, like the story of us here. The cosmology of like the United States where we are right now is very different from the cosmology of like some small country in Africa or something. Different places, even different places on like small tribes that live on opposite sides of a mountain would have different cosmologies. And so it's really interesting. I wasn't even expecting this conversation to take me here, but I'm in this class and all of these things that are happening in my life are weaving in and out of what I'm learning. And it's so interesting to hear you talking about, what I hear is you feeling you feel the responsibility of what you are doing. And I think that's really beautiful to hear, because you are offering new story, new cosmology to this time now, right? And we even in this class, we even talk about things that we maybe just take for granted, the cosmology and the stories that we tell ourselves here. We were trying to come up with lists of just stories that we tell ourselves. Like, one example that's coming to mind is money is power. Like, do we believe that? Do we choose to believe it? Do we not choose to believe it? God is good. Do we choose to believe it? All of these little things that you might find. And it's been so interesting to think about that, and then to talk to you as an author that's literally writing to the generations that are being seeded now. And hearing you speak with such clarity and like reverence for what you're doing, and also passion and curiosity. And I mean, one of the things we are curious people too. So like, we bring curious people into conversations because we're all coming at curiosity for the world from different angles. Yeah. And also I feel a kinship with what you're saying with artists. Our job is to filter this world through us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's filtering through me differently than it's filtering through you. And that's the beauty of all of it.
Totally. Yeah. It's interesting. Like, I'll point out one other thing about the specific work of writing for children, which is that I can talk about all these things and I feel all these things and I mean, what I'm saying. And that's a part of it. But when I'm actually doing the work of the writing for the children, I am my child self. Like, I can't let that part of my brain into the process of writing stories for children. Yeah. And Not that I dislike stories that are like what I will say in a second, which is there are so many stories that are very moralistic just right off the bat. Like they are a lesson or they are a thing, and there is a place for those. I'm just personally not interested in writing them. I want those things to be really baked into the story and feel super duper organic and natural within the context of the story, feeling true to a kid. And the only way I've found to do that successfully is to find my child sense and write from that place. And thankfully, like I am still that person very deeply, so it's fine. But yeah, like the book I had that came out in November is called A Quick Trip to the Store, and it's about a mom and daughter who go grocery shopping because they're out of bananas, but neither one of them wants to go to the store because the mom says that shopping with children is difficult. And the daughter says, well, she doesn't like shopping because shopping with moms is difficult. And there's like all these little comics of them arguing about what that she can get from the store. She wants the thing that has a free toy in it, or she wants the cereal with the extra sugar, and mom's just a total grump about it. And that's sort of the premise that leads them on this wild caper through the grocery store. And it feels authentic, right? Because I'm telling a true story about what it's like to be both an adult and a child in an environment where nobody's getting what they want. Right? Like there's no win-win here. There is only lose-lose. So we might as well have some fun.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm hearing in it so far from you, and what I love, and please correct me if I'm sensing the wrong thing, but it feels like a reorientation towards the child. And I've been obsessed with this lately, thinking about the difference between patriarchy and matriarchy. Patriarchy being this hierarchy with basically children at the bottom because they're useless. And matriarchy is a circle with the children in the center because they hold the future, because they hold evolution, because they are the next. So it's a centering around children to focus on them. And that's what I'm hearing in your writing and how you speak about it is we don't need to tell the kids what to do. It would actually be more beneficial to center them, learn from them, learn how we can maintain that connection to our own inner child. Because child, like, even in like the tarot deck of the Fool, it's the beginning of the major arcana, and it's all about like being willing to be the fool because that's when you learn, being willing to give up those certainties, because when you give up those certainties, that's when you learn something new. Or we've talked about, Christina, before about emptiness, emptying out the old ways of knowing so that you can actually step into something new. And I love that the way you're talking about this.
That seems right. Like I don't have any issues with that. That seems right. It made me think about awe, like that feeling of awe, and how that always feels very different to me than anything else, and it feels deeply rooted in childhood. And I'm not specifically sure why. If I was taking an initial stab at it, I think it would be because when I feel that feeling, I'm feeling like I'm a part of something larger, which makes me feel small, but not in a bad way, in the way I hope or I think I did feel as a child, very held and very connected, but just sort of in awe. And I love that. And I think the best children's books, whether funny or serious, can tap into that somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That feeling of smallness, because when you are young, your physical environment, you do feel so small. And I think, we grow into adults and we can fall into this hubris that we are the biggest things, the most important things, and we forget to look up, and Christina, you talked about cosmology. All you have to do is look to the cosmos and have that feeling of smallness again, or start tapping into deep time to like realize our youngness, but it's easy to lose touch with that as an adult. And yeah, I appreciate any invitation into awe. I agree with you. It's like an indescribable feeling, and I think it does feel young, and it does feel small in the best way.
Sam, how do your ideas come to you, and like how do you prepare maybe this is two questions. How do your ideas come to you? And then how do you prepare? Like, do you have any ritual or anything that prepares you to get into your child mind for writing?
That's a good one. I might answer
Okay.
backwards. Preparation of kid mode involves doing kid stuff. I gotta feel silly. So it's dancing around or singing. It's following my kid energy, which is a very distractive, inattentive style. So sometimes it's like going to the thrift store and touching all the stuff. It's like I collect rocks, let myself have funny things. So like I have toys all over the place in my office. Because seeing those reminds me of being a kid. I have a picture. Oh, I can show you that. I have a picture of me as a kid that I look at in my space. It's dusty because I'm really bad at cleaning
Even just
stuff.
moving the picture, I heard a bell.
That was
Go
one of our
ahead.
Free People bells that I have still, like a tiny one from like a holiday display left over. I don't know.
I love that that
It's
just
still
came into
hanging up.
this.
Yeah. In the picture, what are you doing together? Are you making something?
That's my grandmother. It's some kind of little dog with a battery operated thing. It was like the 80s, right? So
Yeah.
it barked, I think, if you pushed a button.
Cool.
But I'm just giggling. And I love that. I have a complicated origin story. And so for me to have a photograph of like me laughing as a child is really meaningful. And like, you know, to remind myself that I had those moments. But so that's how I activate that part of myself. Oh, I like to get in the garden. And sometimes I have to move my body because I get very moody. And that's a good way to get some dopamine. So I gotta go for stupid mental health walks. I don't remember who like popularized that. It was like a meme for a while, going for my stupid mental health walk. And I was like, oh yes, very relate. Yes, that's me too. So I do that. And then how I get ideas, I don't know. That's just, who knows? Stuff pops in my head all the time. And so I carry a notebook. I have ink and watercolors and pens, and I'm never without them. Like I was in Disneyland line drawing. Like you never know. I just have to be open. Like I'm like a sponge, and then things pop in my head. The book I'm working on now, it popped in my head. I saw a picture of a kid. Oh, I'll show you. This is a rough draft, so it's not cute yet, but this kid. Do you see this little head? This popped in my head, all right? That there's this kid and he can barely see over the top of the table, and it's like there's something he wants on the table. And he's just barely there. And I think it was like there was just something immediately hilarious. It was sort of like this wordless comedy with so much like power before anything has entered in. Like you immediately know like something's gonna happen here. And I think that always feels like a huge clue moment for me, because that's gonna be funny to a kid who can't read any of the words they already know. That kid is shark circling something. You know, we found something good. And also it's funny, like sometimes I don't know that I have like a personal attachment to an idea. And then as I was working this story has existed in multiple forms because that happens. It didn't work the first iteration, so I had to blow it up and put it back together again in a new form. And now it's going to be a book, which is great. But I remembered while I was working on it that I snuck candy out of the Halloween bowl when I was little and got busted and got in trouble. But I think it was a me memory. Like I think I remembered seeing the candy bowl on the table and knowing that I wasn't supposed to take the candy out of there. And I don't know. It's funny. That's just funny. So I needed to see what I could do with it. So there we are.
It's so good. That's like you know, like you're saying, the truer that you can get, the more universal it is. That's like you reaching into some deep part of Sam and pulling
So
out this
weird.
memory and being like, that is so true from when I was like 5.
Yeah. I don't know how it happens. It's weird, but I just try to stay open. I talked to I got invited by another illustrator friend to talk. She teaches college, to talk to her students. And I was like, oh, I don't know if this is a good idea, but okay. And so the only thing I could come up with, though, is like a metaphor for how I think about storytelling. And I do refer back to it. So it's holding up so far. Is it's a little bit like surfing. Like, you have to be in good shape to be good at surfing, right? Like, you have to have some upper body strength, and you have to have some practice time. Like, you need to spend time understanding the mechanics. But when you're actually going out to catch your wave, like, you got to sit there and watch the water, right? And not every wave is for you. Sometimes the wave is for your friend. You know, they're in a better position where they're sitting on their board watching the water too. And then, you know, you're happy for them. Hopefully you're cheering them on as they ride that in. And then when your wave comes, you have an opportunity to ride that, and hopefully you do. And if you fall off, you get to try again, because the waves are coming constantly. They're not stopping. The ocean doesn't stop producing waves. And so it helps with this sense to like push back against the sense of scarcity, because I think that is not good with creativity. Like, trying to generate stories with fear doesn't usually work well. So that's kind of how I think about the idea process, because I do get frustrated sometimes. It takes a long time to write. Writing is hard. The visual part can be easy and feel very magical, but the writing part is hard. And I think most writers, if they're honest, will say that. It can hurt. It takes a long time before it starts to click. It sucks. But it's so amazing when it finally clicks. It's what makes you keep coming back to it. It feels magical when it finally works. So you're like, all right, I guess I'll do that again.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like does it ever start with a feeling? Because what was coming up as you were saying that is like, words are so limiting. So I imagine, you know, that is the true mastery of writing, is to try to find the right combination to express this feeling. And if the feelings are big within you, I imagine it's even trickier.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that I'm always trying to there's something playing in my mind or in my being, right? Either a piece of an experience or an imagined experience that's overlaid onto something that really happened to me or to someone in my circle that I love. And I want you to feel it. I want you to feel that. And so in order for you to feel that, I have to set up all the things around it that will help you to feel it. And so I have to set up all... I feel like I'm just telling myself how to write my graphic novel. Okay, this is good.
Yes.
Becky's good for this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, so you were saying the same thing too. Like, oh, look at all the things that are weaving into the thing I'm thinking about. We're pattern seeking, right? Like, that's the thing. So, yeah, I think in this story I'm trying to create right now, like, I want you to feel the feeling of discovering your voice and how to take up your space as a more quiet person, but a person who has deep opinions, right? Which is a personality type that I don't see a lot in the space, which is why I'm interested in trying to have a story for that type of character. You have a lot of people who are loud, who need to learn how to listen to others. You have a lot of people who are, you know, super anxious and just need to feel validated or safe. But it's a strange personality type that is somebody who appears to be very quiet, but is like actually has big boss energy. And I have a few people like that in my life, and I love them deeply. And so I would love to tell a story that honors that. And so I need to set up all the pieces around the feelings, I guess. Yeah, I do. I have to set up all the circumstances so that you could feel what it feels like to feel those things, and then how all the situations act upon that reality in a way that you can relate to, even if that isn't your personality. Something weird happens though, and I think I don't have a reference for it, but I know I've seen it. They've done brain scans, like when you're reading a story, you experience the things that are happening to the characters in the story as if they're happening to you. Like, if we scan your brain, you know, if they're jumping and doing something dangerous, your brain lights up as if you're doing the things. I think that's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, the brain doesn't know the difference between real as in you can touch it and real as in you're imagining it, and story, but it has to be really vivid for the brain to really register it the same. But that's the power of story, is it does make it so real that it sucks you in. It's beautiful.
I've been thinking a lot about art in all of its forms and how it has the ability to heal. A lot my work has been brought into places of literal healing recently. And then it's made me think, because I'm living with a curious mind, it's made me think, does this work have memory? Like, does it remember being with me for a long time when I made it? Can it heal? Like, is my connection to this work still alive? Two separate questions. Am I connected to it still so that I might send it healing? And does it already hold memory so that it may do its own work? And I think about, so I believe yes and yes, first of all. And it's a powerful thought. And I think about what you're doing, and I even in you saying you have some friends that you want to speak to in this young adult novel, I also see you speaking to yourself too. Yeah, always. So, do you have thoughts? Like, does that thought, can you relate? Can you relate to me, Sam?
Yeah,
Art and healing? Yeah.
yeah. I think it's interesting. I think it's an easier yes for writers. Because I think writers have talked about this for a long time, right? That like you make a work, it could be a novel or a children's book or any type of writing, poetry, and your choices, the choices that you made to put those specific things on those pages, then go and they're in the hands of someone else, and that person's having a relationship with those choices. Like, yes, of course, I have connections with children all over the place that I don't even know I'm having as they read the books that I make. I try not to think about it too much because it kind of freaks me out. But I know, or I say a lot, like there's a point in the bookmaking process where I send the book out into the world to go live its life, right? Like it feels that way to me, and that's the way that I deal with that. And I hope that it has the power to heal, and I hope that all stories do. And I think I think your intention stays with it. I think there's probably some kind of physics we don't understand that would help us explain that. And that's a thing I'm tinkering with in this story too, which is, the way that, strings vibrate and sound vibrates and different frequencies. The same string can do different things and sort of all the ways we show up in the world, right? And these different things happen and how it makes you appear or sound, right? And I don't know, there's some kind of connection there. I mean, why not?
Yeah. Now I can't wait to read your graphic novel. You're speaking my language. I mean, I even think of like the research that they've done, I think primarily in Japan, around water crystals and the effect that intention has on the composition of the water crystals. And, we're made of mostly water. So, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head that it's probably some physics we don't understand yet, but that doesn't make it not true. And I think intention does transcend space and time and ripples out in ways we'll maybe never fully understand. But yeah, it's beautiful. I like thinking of these ripples going out into the world and all the connections.
Well, I will say, knowing your work, Christina, like it's always been, like you are always such a joyful person. And I know that's always been a huge part of the work I'm not surprised you feel that way and that you have those experiences and that awareness and sense. Like, I think that's been true for you always. And it's a part of what draws people to your work. I remember talking about, like, I don't know if it was art school or after, the conversations about how so much of people making art, it seemed like it needed to be heavy or serious, and you sort of exploring what it meant to push back against that and be true to the work you wanted to make, which was sort of defiantly joyful.
Defiantly joyful is very true. Yeah, in art school, I had one particular friend who had a very difficult upbringing, and she was like, Watka, why is your work not painful? It has to be. It must be painful to be real. And I was like, it would be fake. I can't do it. It's not me. And it wasn't like my professors in art school. I think historically art was supposed to come out of pain. I didn't get that necessarily from my mentors and teachers in art school. I think because they saw me and saw, maybe they would be coaching someone else, like, use your pain to make the art. Maybe that's where like the deepest work is for you. It's just not my experience. So yeah, I've had to really accept that and lean into the joy, because that's how consciousness flows through me as me. It's not, I don't have a well of deep trauma or pain or anxious noodly insides that I need to untangle outward. I am meant to be so bright and like not hide that. That's my role. I'm about to be 40. Tomorrow's my birthday. And I am like as clear as day that the days of me wondering where the hurt is are not really anymore.
Good.
Yeah, because I didn't have to go find it. I tried for a while, like maybe there is some, I don't know, maybe there should be more problems. So now I'm conscious of the healing properties in the work that I make, which is coming because I'm finally just not looking. Instead of looking for hurt that should be in here somewhere, I'm actually looking for like how I can put that energy towards real, proper forward motion,
Well, it's a beacon for people who don't have a lived memory of what it looks like, right? Like I do have the messy background, right? And I'm building something super different in my family now. I don't have the muscle memory for it, but I know it when I see it out, right? I go, oh, there it is. It is possible, right? And for you to be authentic to the delightful life that you've lived is a beacon for the people who are looking for proof that it's possible. Like, it's very validating. It's like, oh, look, you can be healthy and loving and kind, and you can raise a family that way, and they can turn around and do the same thing with their children. Goodness can come and flow generationally, just like trauma can. It's just very rare in the world we live in, or I feel like it is. And so it's really, really lovely that you share that.
Thank you.
Happy early birthday.
Oh my God, thank you. The music was recorded live as a part of the sound service at 3S Art Space in Portsmouth, New Hampshire in January 2025, where musicians responded to the changing light in the room that reflected and refracted through Christina's suspended artwork. Andrew Halchak, the composer of this piece, is playing bass clarinet, and Tomas Cruz and Katie Seiler are singing.
Also, I was at the gas station, getting gas, obviously, and, my eyes were just wandering, and all of a sudden I look up at, like, the overhang of the gas pumps, and there is this reflection of the puddle on the ground, and it's just these beautiful dance of ripples, and I wish I had taken a video of it, but it was just like the universe reminding me that everything I'm doing is rippling out and I can just trust, and everything is aligning exactly the way it's supposed to be. It was
a very obvious example of the power of noticing.